Well, good evening, everyone. I just want to take this moment to say thank you for taking time from your evening to join us tonight and listen to our presentation about the proposed community center. And just for a minute, I just want to give you a little background. For 20 years, I was in the electronics industry as a mechanical designer. First 20 years of my career. In the second 20 years of my career, I worked in the oil industry. My background was in engineering research, primarily of leak detection technology for fuel storage systems. Later, as I left the oil industry, I became a consultant, and my background was, again, continuing to be similar to that, but only in environmental safety risk management. And invariably, that got me involved in a lot of engineering analysis, particularly statistical analysis of extremely large databases of data. And so you'll see how some of that comes in handy when you get into something like this. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting the results of Citizens for Strong Fairmont's analysis of available information about the proposed community center. Now, this information comes from a ton of different sources, and I didn't want to go into all of that tonight, but it is going to be posted on our website. So if you get a chance, go visit our website at www.c4asf.com for more information. What I'd like to do is give you a 30,000-foot big picture story tonight. And the reason why, there's so much information out there, it would take us hours. We could be here past midnight, and I know you guys don't need that. But all of the details that we cover tonight are in our position papers. Some of them are out on the table. They get into the weeds, and they footnote all the sources of data where we pulled our information from. And they also are available for download on our website. They're free. There's no obligation to sign up. It's provided as a public service. So I just wanted to say we hired Gemini Studios tonight to videotape this presentation. So there will be no live videotaping other than Gemini Studios, and I appreciate that. The other presenter tonight is my friend Mark Ossenfort, and Mark is going to be introducing you to a new organization, talking about its mission and its purpose, and then he will be getting into some significant detail about specific issues that I bring up tonight, but that we believe are important for you to know about. So we want to stress at the outset that we have never been against bringing a community center to Fairmont. We honestly believe, and sincerely believe, that a rightly sized facility with the amenities that meet our needs and at a price we can afford and is sustainable over the long haul would be a wonderful benefit for our town. We are against the proposed community center for reasons we'll be presenting to you this evening. So let's look at this. I wanted to bring a little house cleaning tonight. You've all been given 3x5 cards. If you don't have a 3x5 card, you can raise your hand and the ushers will give you one. So as you go through the night, if you think of a question, you can write it on the card, and at the end of the presentations, the ushers will come by and pick up your cards, and then we'll read them and we'll answer your questions. Signatures are not required. Your anonymity will be maintained. All right, well, thank you very much, and we're going to continue and start now. So who are we? Well, we are an informal group of concerned, tax-paying citizens from all walks of life. We believe that government is accountable to its citizens. We support fiscal responsibility and a balanced budget. And we believe that city government should be understandable. So our mission is threefold. We wanted to inform our citizens of tax-related issues that you're confronted with. We want to focus on affordable and sustainable improvements for our city. And we want to help develop viable long-term solutions for our community. So we're looking at affordable, sustainable, and viable long-term, because we believe that means success for all of us. Now, our current issues that we're facing today are a product of our history. And I'd like to just briefly review some of our history. The Fairmont area, as many of you remember, in Martin County lost 100 farms during the 1980s farming crisis. We lost a generation because most of the farms that failed were owned by 20 to 40-year-old families. And then later, as an aftershock from that farming crisis, in the 90s, Fairmont lost Railway Motors and Stokely Van Camp, two of our most major manufacturers, which was about 750 jobs. So when we lost farms and jobs, we lost families and businesses, including a number of retail stores, as many of you are well aware. So understanding our problem is crucial. It's a fact. The city of Fairmont has to maintain its infrastructure. Our schools, our roads, and utilities, they are necessities. We can't do without these. But a decreased population and businesses meant less taxable income. Well, that created another problem. That increased the tax stress on our remaining taxpayers and our businesses. So, looking for affordable, sustainable, long-term solutions for today and tomorrow, we believe it's necessary that we have to concentrate on rebuilding our wealth base. And the first thing we believe is necessary is to bring manufacturing with jobs with higher wage benefits. Other businesses will follow if we bring manufacturing in. We want to focus on rebuilding our recreational strengths, our lakes, parks, and trails, and then we want to look to ways to eliminate any roadblocks to housing and economic development. So let's look briefly at the proposed community center. Some people claim that it will resolve all the problems we face today. For 40 years, before 2016, the citizens of Fairmont rejected the idea of bringing a community center to town, typically by a large margin. The citizens recognized that it wasn't needed because the town already had many activities and amenities. So why are we doing this now? Well, let's go back in time a little bit. We'll go back to the Ideas Survey. You may remember that in 2019, Project 1590 conducted an Ideas Survey of what people would like to see in Fairmont. The results of that, they claimed that more than 50% voted for a community center. Now, was that correct? It depends on how you use and look at the data. The original database contained 1,327 idea submissions, yet only 7.69% of those idea submissions suggested a community center or YMCA. So what happened? Well, to get their survey, their questionnaires, they took the database and they eliminated 1,247 ideas, or 94% were either eliminated or combined for the first questionnaire of 80 ideas. So this is the first problem. When you eliminate 94% of your data, you have just eliminated the weighting factor, which is very crucial to statistical analysis. So the results that you're going to get are flawed to begin with, before you even started. So why is this a problem? Because it comes down to private use versus public policy. A ruling by the 7th U.S. District Court stated that if taxing entities want to use surveys as an aid for setting public taxing policy, they must be conducted according to certain criteria. They have to be conducted by a third-party, independent organization possessing survey expertise. The surveys must meet certain scientific standards that will demonstrate the survey's validity. Any survey used by a taxing authority must be independent, rigorous, and free from bias. So let's take a look now at the local option sales tax. In June 2016, citing the Ideas Survey as a driver for the proposal, the City Council adopted a resolution, 2016-20, to present a sales tax referendum to the citizens. The referendum was to fund recreational amenities, trails, and a regional wellness center, which is undefined, with a 0.5% sales tax at a $15 to $20 million ceiling. So if you look at this here, the line that I wanted to highlight says, the city staff and community groups have assessed the city's recreational amenities and engaged citizens in conversations to identify the needs and wants for the community. So the second problem, the city chose to use the results of a flawed survey that did not meet validation criteria for bias, rigor, and independence. Now, by the time the proposal reached the citizens for a vote, the purpose of the referendum had gone through some adjustments. The November 2016 general election ballot question read, for the purpose of funding recreational amenities, trails, and/or a community center. So here's the third problem, the difference in the language between the resolution and the referendum. There's a fourth problem. The referendum language lacked two Minnesota requirements. It did not give taxpayers the option of choosing individual projects. It did not specify the amount of money from the sales tax revenue that would be devoted to each project category. Now, I will admit, the requirements are post-referendum vote, but the Minnesota Department of Revenue recognized there was a problem, and they added the above requirements for all future sales tax referendums. As a fifth problem, after the 2016 general referendum vote, the Minnesota Department of Revenue deemed the language "and/or a community center" to be vague. The final language of the local option sales tax reads this way: for the purpose of funding recreational amenities, trails, and a community center. So then the next thing happened. Just a few months later, $14 million is dedicated to community center. The City Council passed a second resolution in 2019 authorizing the distribution of 14 of the 15 million to the construction of a community center. And in the words of one of our members, all of this took place after I marked my ballot. As a sixth problem, changing the language from "and/or" to "and." Mark will be addressing this issue. It's a legal issue, and he will be addressing that in his presentation. Now, by dedicating $14 million, this is real crucial. Pay attention to this. $14 million of the $15 million to a single project, it has set up a situation where taxes will have to be increased to fund any upgrades or repairs to lakes, parks, and trails and other recreational amenities. Why? Because that money is no longer available. It's gone. Now, let's look at the engineering studies. Since the citizens entered the voting booth, several $100,000 have been spent on the project. There have been 3 successive architectural and engineering designs have been done, with a 4th expected in October. The ordinance and resolution allow for additional sales tax dollars to be collected above the voter-approved $15 million to cover legal, architectural, engineering, and construction contracts. So this is the first silent tax increase associated with the community center. Now, there are stark contrasts between the 3 studies that have been completed to date. Over 7 years, the price per square foot has gone up, while size and amenities have gone down. We look forward to seeing the 4th study that is due out in October. All of these studies include pool and ice. So the Bolton and Mink feasibility study, 2016, was estimated at $39.9 million. It was 190,000 square feet. It's about $210 per square foot. The JLG RJM study in 2019 was set up at $36.1 million, 122,000 square feet, and that was $296 a square foot. Now the latest is available, the 292 group, is a 2-phase bill, and that was 2022-2023 right now. That's going to be $43.6 million, and it requires a second sales tax. And that's only 86,000 square feet, and the price right now is $507 a square foot. And so we're still waiting, and we're looking forward to seeing what the FACCF and the 292 group produce in October. And there are also key differences in the amenities that each plan provides. So for instance, the Bolton and Mink study in 2016, ice was 49,000 square feet. Pool had 6 to 8 lanes. Fitness was 4,500 square feet, and there were 3 to 4 courts. And there was a community event space, 32,000 square feet with commercial kitchen. I'm here to tell you, that's bigger than the entire square footage of the SMEC building. Our JLG, RJM in 2019, their pool was 8 lanes, but the ice had shrunk in size to 42,000 square feet. But look at fitness. It went up to 11,000 square feet. That's a significant increase. And they dropped to 3 courts. And the community space dropped down to 13,000 square feet, but it had a commercial kitchen just like the Bolton and Mink study. Now, the latest study that we have available, the 292 group, that has only 3 lanes. And the second phase, the ice is only going to happen, second phase, if new sales tax is approved. It doesn't include ice. All right, then the fitness has gone up a little bit more. It's at 11,100, and there's only 1 basketball court, and now there's only 1,900 square feet for catering-only space. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Now, the ongoing operations are not free. You've all heard, hey, it's going to be free. Well, it's not going to be free. There are similar significant costs involved in maintaining a facility of this size and running its programs. Let's look at the JLG 2022 building proposal as it is run by the YMCA. Annual maintenance has been estimated to be about $680,000 per year. The YMCA memberships are estimated to be approximately $600 per person, and there'll be fees for special classes that will vary from anywhere from $25 to $175 per class. And then fundraising is estimated to be slightly over $1 million for the first 5 years. That's $5 million per year for the first 5 years. Now, here's another question. Where's the RFP? The Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation appears to be running this $26 to $46 million project. Did they win a request for proposal for, quote, the design of the community center from the city of Fairmont? The answer is no. The Minnesota statutes require that any project exceeding $175,000 must follow the competitive bidding process of uniform municipal building contracting laws. And Mark will get into this, why this is significant. So here's the seventh problem. The city never issued an RFP for the design of a community center. They've issued RFP for other things, but never for the design. Yet, in May 23, the city signed a memorandum of intent to turn over the project and taxpayer funds to the FACCF. So how will that work? I'm going to stop now. I'm going to turn it over to my wife, Diana. She's going to come up and talk to you about the financing plan.
Hey, everybody. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate the time you've given us this evening. It's delightful for you to be here, and I'm very grateful. My name is Diana Bradley. I'm going to walk you through a very brief overview, too brief from my view, of the financial structure of the proposed community center as we know it today. My background is in mergers and acquisitions, and one of my roles is mapping transactions. So this is very familiar territory to me. One of the challenges we have of the proposed community center project is that it is constantly changing. As a city, we are 7 years into a project, and we still do not have a design that has landed. We're waiting for another one next month. Very expensive engineering studies, by the way, very expensive. We also do not have the final proposal for the financial plan. So we're going to look at the history of the plan as we know it today. In this slide, we have the 2019 Community Center Finance Plan. It's quite simple. And I think it's what most of us think about when we look at the finances for this structure. There is the taxpayers' cash coming out of their pockets on the left-hand side, a little bond loan to tide the city over while it continues to collect money, goes into the city of Fairmont, $14 million. Mayo Clinic contributes the land down to the city, and the city builds the project at the bottom. In the meantime, over on the right-hand side, you'll see green. The Fairmont Foundation collects $6 million from very kind and generous people and pours that down into the community center. The result is very simple, too. One owner, a $20 million building, a $225,000 land asset. The owner is the city on behalf of the taxpayers. Let's look at what happened in 2022 when the city divided up, or the foundation divided up the project into two pieces. We now have the land being donated to the foundation on the right-hand side, and the foundation retaining ownership of that land. The taxpayer money continues to flow down into the project. The donor's money in green flows down. But on your right, in purple, the foundation owns the land, the $225,000 land asset. Now there's a wiggly line, a wiggledy purple line, I didn't know how else to map it for you, that shows that the foundation is going to lease the land to the city. Then on the left-hand side, the city builds the building on the leased land, and leases it back to the foundation. Now, I've been in the middle of these types of leasing, multi-layer leasing, multi-owner transactions when I was in the oil industry. I can tell you that when the day comes and things aren't going well, they're very hard to unwind. I'll tell you another thing. There will be a day when it doesn't go well. So this is what we have today. When you look at this, I just want you to raise your hands. Who here would agree with me that life is too short? You're absolutely right. So I looked at this. This is the 2Q 2023 Phase 1 plan. I looked at this and said, this looks like a multi-layer private equity transaction. And here, I want to give you the disclaimer. This is the latest financial map that we have available to us. It may not be the latest plan. It's what we have available. The reason we're going through it tonight is because it tells you a lot about some of the things that are being contemplated when the Sentinel says that the foundation is looking at sources of funding. These are the kinds of things that we're looking at. I can walk you through this in about an hour and 10 minutes, so if anyone is interested, you would make me very happy, very, very happy. But I want to say, as complicated as this looks, you're all capable of understanding this. You just don't know the nomenclature. This is less complicated than running a combine. This is much less complicated than raising children. Trust me. This is actually a fairly understandable transaction once you take it apart. I do suggest chocolate peanut M&Ms. They're really helpful. It took me 2 weeks. So here, what we're going to do here is walk you through what my boss would ask me for. She would say to me, Diana, show me the waterfall. How does the money pour through? So we're going to walk through this. The blue lines are going to, the next few slides, the blue lines are the taxpayers' public money flowing down through the project. So you see your pocket up on the left is blue. You're the taxpayer. I'm the taxpayer. This is our money, guys. It goes down into the city where it says sales tax proceeds. I know the writing is very small, which flows down into an interesting thing called the leverage lender. Very unique for a not-for-profit, meaning the foundation, to be a leverage lender, but that's how this map reads today, or that's how this map reads read in 2Q 2023. The foundation or the leverage lender pours it down into the investment fund, which is, by the way, not owned by the foundation. That investment fund is owned by a box over on the right called the tax credit investor, who has not been determined yet. But look at those 6 arrows. The interesting thing is the taxpayers' money pours through 6 times down to the project. 6 moves for my money, 6 moves for your money. Now we're going to add in the charitable donations. So if you've been kind enough and generous enough, and I do mean that with all my heart, to this beautiful town, and given donor money to the foundation, this is how your money is going to move in this structure. Down to the leverage lender or the foundation, down into a for-profit investment fund which is owned by someone else, down to the sub-CDE, down to the foundation's holding company, and down into the project. I could get into the weeds with you with this, but what I want you to see is 6 moves. Donor money moves 6 times. Taxpayer money moves 6 times. Let's go to the next piece. So the red here shows you the new market tax credit. There was a really interesting little misunderstanding in this Friday Sentinel. The Friday Sentinel said that the new market tax credit is a national organization. It's a national organization only to the extent that the federal government is a national organization. The new market tax credit is set by Congress every year. They pull the pool of money. They tell the U.S. Department of Treasury how much money is going to be in the new market tax credit for low-income investments. And then the U.S. Department of Treasury goes through and picks who gets to have that investment funds. So the red here is your federal tax money, blue local tax money, green donor money, red federal money, and the federal money moves 5 to 6 times. I just threw in one little bit about the why here. Let's not forget that while the taxpayers are the largest donor to this project, and I know that the foundation has argued that that's not true, but last I checked, we're putting in a lot of money, guys. The taxpayers are the largest donor. The foundation's holding company, not the foundation's holding company will lease the building to operate operations to the YMCA. The YMCA's relationship will not be owned by the taxpayers. It will be owned by the foundation's holding company. Here we add in the land. So the purple is the land. The land is interesting because the land moves twice. The land is donated from Mayo Clinic to the leverage lender, the foundation. The foundation throws it on down and it pours it into the foundation's holding company, which is a for-profit, by the way, and down into the project. Then, don't forget that this is only half of the project. This doesn't include ICE. The foundation will come back to duplicate this potentially again in the next sales tax that they're going to ask for. I wanted you to see the loans. This is the loan map. Potential loans, 6 of them, including the one that the city takes out for on behalf of the taxpayers to pay the bridge loan or the bond. Bond, bridge loan, same thing. There is a lot of interest payments in this. We calculated at a ridiculously low, 5.33%, which we'll never get right now. But at 5.33%, all the interest money, there's $16.15 million worth of interest transactions. One pays another, pays another, pays another, right? But that's the aggregate amount of interest in this transaction map. And my boss would say, Diana, where's my circles of cost? So here's your circles of cost. These are potential circles in places where there are consultants, lawyers, bankers, accountants, underwriters, who all are going to feed in their information into this, help with regulatory issues, guide through the transactions, bill on the back end. So closing map and circles of costs are very important. There is one last piece I really wanted to show you all. And it's a teeny, teeny, tiny little bottom footnote on the left-hand side. And you can find this map, I think we're going to post on the website. But sometimes it's the footnotes, right, guys? I don't know what else to say, but the footnotes are important. So in the footnotes, there are some loans at the bottom going into the holding company called Loan A and Loan B. And the footnote basically says that the interest rates for Loan A and Loan B will be structured, they use a different word, but structured to cover the interest payments on other parts of that transaction, plus the $1 million that the CDE, which we haven't even talked about, there's a little box on the right that says CDE, they can charge up to $1 million in transaction fees. And here's the interesting thing, that those loans have a 7-year lifespan, as it's shown in this map, fully amortizing after 7 years, over 30 years, if put call is not exercised. There's a put call somewhere in this transaction. Now, for those of you who don't know what a put call is, I'm going to give you a 2-second, right? A put call is, if you do a lot of investing, you know what put calls are, but for purposes for us mortals, because I'd rather have it simple, if I give you a coupon to buy a bottle of shampoo at Target that has to be used by November 30th and you get it for 30 cents, and you go and buy that bottle of shampoo and it was a $6 bottle of shampoo, you saved a lot of money. Somebody, it doesn't say who, and you always ask who has it, who owns that put call, has a put call for some amount of money, we don't know how much, for some asset in this transaction. I am hoping that someone can explain that to me someday, because it's not in the notes here, but the only asset that we know of, the only hard asset that we know of here, is that building. Thanks so much for everything. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. So, why would we do this? Well, there's been a bunch of myths out there also. One of the first ones is there's nothing to do in Fairmont. We don't do anything for our kids. Many of us have heard this. Well, Citizens for a Strong Fairmont, we thought, really? Is it really like that? Is it that bad? So we went out and we did some research. Well, we've identified more than 160 groups providing activities and services for our youth, our teens, adults, and our senior. And I'm just going to quickly run through. This is just a listing of some of these that we've been compiling and trying to put information together about all these different organizations. And there's a lot of these. Eventually we'll get this list done and we will publish it. So there's another myth. It will entice businesses to move to Fairmont. Well, I'm here to tell you the 7 largest moving companies in North America, they track the reasons why businesses move, and a community center is not on the list. It's not even on the radar screen. There's another myth. It will bring people to Fairmont. Well, what does that mean, it will bring people to Fairmont? We talking about moving here, or people that come into town will come here for this, or what? People generally will come to Fairmont because of jobs, lakes, family, and the lower cost of living. A community center really isn't as significant a factor as some people would want us to believe. There's also these project concerns we have. Government competition with the private sector. This facility will directly compete with the existing fitness centers, and Mark is going to address that later. The project is going to be very expensive at $507 per square foot in today's dollars. We don't know when they actually start construction where that's going to be, how inflation is going to affect that. The total cost for Phase 1 and Phase 2 will likely exceed $50 million when inflation-driven increases in the cost of construction are factored into the equation. Now, here, there's empty buildings in town, or partially empty buildings, that could be used for a community recreation center. Here's the other issue, our future infrastructure issues. Why we don't want hidden taxes. Look at our roads. This former city engineer explained to us that we're looking at $200 to $400 million to replace our roads in the next 40 years. Look at our sewers. It's been estimated it's going to cost $12 million to replace our sewers. Electrical power station, it's talking $12 million just for transformers. Lake water quality, we have to improve the quality of water. We don't know how much that's going to cost, and the longer we kick that one down, that can down the road, the more cost it's going to be. Well, park repairs and upgrades, they wear out. Things just wear out. We got to maintain these. And then we're talking about a jail. We've heard figures in here from $30 to $50 million, and now we're talking a wastewater treatment plant. I've seen figures of $40 to $60 million for that. And now there's discussion possibly about a new fire station. What the cost could be, we don't know. But the sum total in this is $300 to $650 million, which is roughly $7.5 million to $16.5 million per year for 40 years. That's twice the city budget practically. Now, and there's also this, the impact on local nonprofits. Fairmont, as you've seen from the list I showed you, have many charities and not-for-profits working hard to meet the needs of citizens and increase our community's quality of life. And I think they do a great job. I'm just blown away by it. How will they be impacted? Well, you've got the FAC Founders Fund fundraising. That's just $400,000 per year for 5 years. The YMCA scholarships and programming fundraising, they're talking $220,000 average per year for 5 years. And then the YMCA would like to set up an endowment fundraising of $400,000 for 5 years. We're talking over $1 million per year for the next 5 years. Now I ask you, how big is the pie in this town that money can be drawn up by other charities when they suddenly got to do with this? Now, there's other recent developments. Earlier this year, Tegra was unwilling to agree to standard errors and emissions language in its contract with the city and walked away from the project. In an unusual move, they demanded that the city take all the liability for the facility design. Well, according to the September 22nd Sentinel, the FACCF has hired Tegra back. Other recent developments. The FACCF recently asked the city to break its contract with Krauss Anderson. The 9/22 Sentinel stated that the FACC is in the process of issuing their own RFP for the community center. This is to reduce their costs, not the city's costs. Once everything's been handed over to them, it's all about them reducing their costs. We have no control over that. Krauss Anderson, I want to remind everyone, won the bid in a legitimate city-issued RFP and has spent roughly $75,000 to $150,000 to put that together on that project, which the city may have to reimburse. We don't know yet. They're in negotiations. So we don't think that this is affordable. At $46 million at minimum, you're talking $507 a square foot. Phase 1 is going to be $26 million. Phase 2 is going to be at least $20 million. And it requires a new sales tax. We're looking at $680,000 per year for maintenance, which will be funded, all right, by funding, by two things, fundraising and membership fees. We're talking, they got the $1 million fundraising and the $600 membership dues. Now, we don't think there's any long-term viability to this. The FACCF has only agreed to keep the facility operating as a community center for 7 to 9 years, the life of the city's bond loan, according to the second quarter tax plan that Diana went over with you. So what are the people of Fairmont getting? Well, we're getting up with no land and no building, but a big community bill. You start adding all of this up, at the end of the day, it's $37.22 million for the total cost for 9 years. That's roughly $4.3 million per year. This is just phase 1. Now, you've also seen this. How many of you have seen all the headlines about YMCAs closing around the country? It's not stopping. It's continuing to go. The issue gets down to, after many years, you find out that the cost to maintain a facility because it wears out just becomes too much, and they can't sustain it. So what would we do different? Well, you may remember there was a challenge. Councilman Jay Maynard, he asked a question. I thought it was a great question. I thought it was a good question. For those of you who are against the proposed community center, what would you do differently? Well, we talked about this. We said the first issue is our lake water quality. Let's dedicate $2 million from the sales tax to trigger an $8 million grant from the federal government to clean up our lakes. This would give us $10 million for lake quality improvements. The lakes are our most critical natural resource because it is from them we get our drinking water. Fairmont is one of only a handful of communities that uses surface water for drinking. We talked about trails and parks. We suggested putting $1 million toward repairs and upgrades to our trail system and $2.3 million to complete the proposed upgrades to Gomswood Park. That actually would increase the available funds for the city improvement projects. And we also talked about this. We've talked about remodeling the Southern Minnesota Education Center into a community center. We think this is a viable alternative. It's been upgraded. It's got elevators. It's ADA handicapped upgraded. They've done a lot of work on that building. And so you've got a couple plans in the main floor remodel with UHD there right now. We've got adding in sewing and quilting, cooking classroom, updating conference room. Then in the upper level, we talked about turning a major area into a teen adult center with all kinds of different activities. You can see that there, slot car racing, pool hall. We've got foosball, chess, card tables, billiards, arcade, pinball, and table tennis. And we've got a gymnasium we're going to remodel. We recommended remodeling into a dance hall with a band stage. And then one of the rooms could be turned into an online training and computer gaming room. And finally, the Commons room could be converted into a team center for even more activities. And lastly, we talked about the aquatic park pool, where right now we're estimating to be about $3.4 million to enclose the lap pool at the aquatic center for year-round use. We are currently exploring this technology with the manufacturer to determine its viability and potential use. The photograph on the upper left-hand side is what it looks like inside that structure if it's erected. So I believe, yes, this ends my presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and he's going to give you his talk, and then we'll take questions after we're done with him.
Okay, I get to follow those two. Wow. Good luck to me. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
I first of all want to start with saying thank you to Richard and Diana and the C4 group for all your continued support and everything you've done for the organization and the city of Fairmont. I want to start off by saying my name is Mark Ossenfort. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to thank Richard and Diana for everything they've done. Throughout this presentation, I will also refer to them as the C4 group. I am a taxpayer and investor in the city of Fairmont. I'm a 30-year veteran of the health, fitness, sports performance, and physical therapy space. I'll let my presentation tonight speak for my knowledge in the industry. I'm not here tonight to get you to change your mind on anything. My goal is to show you this community center project through a different lens, that of a business owner, entrepreneur, husband, father, employer, taxpayer, and concerned citizen. Disclaimer, before I get started, I need to share this disclaimer that all information and videos used have come from public sites. Additionally, we will be talking about Project 1590, the Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation, or FAC, and other groups outside the city. None of our arguments are focused towards those organizations. Our concerns are solely focused with the actions of the City Council and the administration of Fairmont. Fairmont amenities. Wow. What a fabulous community with the unbelievable amenity of having 5 lakes within the city. How awesome is that? I also want to make you aware that there is one other local amenity we all should be proud of that only Fairmont can lay claim to. Fairmont has 80,000 square feet of tax-paying fitness space on the tax rolls. There is no other community of 10,000 people in the United States that can claim to have this level of tax payments for the fitness sector in a town of 10,000 people. Just like our lakes, these 2 fitness clubs should be celebrated as a local amenity for all the diverse programming both clubs offer the community. Next slide, please. I'm here tonight to introduce you to the Fairmont Taxpayer Coalition for Government Transparency. It's an unincorporated taxpayer watchdog organization whose mission is a group that is to promote transparency in the use of public tax revenue and assets by the city of Fairmont, Minnesota. Membership in our coalition is open to anyone who is concerned about the detrimental impacts of opaque, behind-the-scenes tax revenue and asset activity by the city of Fairmont. There are no dues or fees to belong, although members or others may contribute money or other considerations to help advance the mission of our coalition. Next slide, please. So you may be asking, why another group? Many of you have recently witnessed events of the city council meetings where members of the C4 group being attacked. After a presentation was made, supporters sitting in the gallery were attacked. The purpose of forming this new group is to create a layer of anonymity and help protect our members from retaliation, as well as all local business owners that join our organization. So, Richard's group, Citizens for a Strong Fairmont, think of them as like a ground game in an election. Business to business, house to house, friend to friend, neighbor to neighbor, family to family interaction with you, the people, the taxpayers. Think of our Fairmont Taxpayer Coalition group will act much like a super PAC for supporters, designed to keep people's privacy away from retaliation. It has one specific spokesperson, the president, that is myself, and all members are free to comment to the president or spokesperson. There will not be any meetings or communication between the individual members unless done so privately between themselves. Group emails will be done one-way emails using blind carbon copy. The Fairmont Taxpayer Coalition also acts as our fundraising arm again, so any funding given will be anonymous. Myself as president will be the only one that would be aware of those support funds. Next slide, please. So, my story is going to begin in 2016. I'm going to touch on just a couple topics there, and then I'm going to move forward to 2022. When you voted in 2016, did you understand from this language on the ballot that 99% of the $15 million would be spent on a community center? Did you as a taxpayer ever envision all but 1% of the $15 million would be spent on that community center? There's only $150,000 today to be spent on anything else. And was a YMCA what you voted for in 2016? Additionally, the Bolton and Mink study had just come out in September 2016, just prior to the vote, and had the fitness component as 4,500 square feet. In 2016, we, cutting-edge fitness owner, CJ and myself, chose not to challenge the facility at that time because we were not worried about a 4,500 square foot fitness space when fitness was not the original plan's focus, because what was shown on paper, fitness was only going to be 4,500 square feet of a total 190,000 square foot facility. In the Bolton and Mink study, paid for by the city with taxpayer dollars, the fitness component again was just 2.5% of this original facility of 190,000 square feet. Again, the primary focus of the facility was not on fitness. Next slide, please. So what happened immediately after the vote? The city ended up changing the language, as Richard referred to earlier, in the referendum question from and/or disjunctive to read and conjunctive. Okay? The city voted to dedicate the majority, approximately 99% of the sales tax revenue, to constructing a community center. The city never issued an RFP for the design of that community center. The city created an additional ad hoc group, the Community Center Advisory Board, CCAB, to work with Tegra and the architects to recommend the Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation to come up with a design. Significant note here, not a single person on the CCAB represented citizens who voted against the sales tax or the construction of a community center. It was stacked with people in favor of the community center. The one lone voice not in favor of the community center was a member of the city council who could only act in the role of a liaison to keep the rest of the city council appraised of the progress of the CCAB. There were 2 liaisons, and they did not have any voting or overriding influence with that board. Next slide, please. I want to address what has been stated or said by members of the city council and Project 1590 and the FACT group compared to what they actually did or what their actions were. When things that people say do not line up with their subsequent actions, we typically refer to this as lip service. People speak words with their lips expressing what they will do or support, but those statements are not followed up with subsequent actions supporting those statements. It began when the narrative from the city council switched from the city owning and building a community center, which was in the 2014 through 2017 timeframe. We need to have a YMCA run this facility. Now we're going to move forward to the Ballard King study, and I'm going to read a note here from page 57 of the Ballard King study. That study was another study paid for by you, the citizens, and the city of Fairmont. Many people in the stakeholder meetings mentioned the sensitivity of not competing with the existing private providers. However, it must be remembered that the space allocated in the preliminary program is less than 10% of the total building size and clearly indicates that fitness is not the primary focus. This was in 2019. The facility had been shrunk down to approximately 40, and the number consistently moves between 45 and 48,000 square feet. The fitness at that time rose to approximately 11,000 square feet. Moving on. Next slide, please. The fitness component in the design of the community center is the only component that has increased in square footage since the 2016 vote. I'm going to say that again, folks. The fitness component in the design of the community center is the only component that has increased in square footage since the 2016 vote. Every other component of the proposed facility has either been eliminated totally or shrunk in size significantly, except for the fitness component. Today, the fitness component is approximately 11,130 square feet, and the total facility is just over 45,000 gross square feet. So you tell me, what is the intent of this facility? The fitness space is 10 times the percentage of space in the original facility dedicated to fitness when compared to the Bolton and Mink study in 2016, and is 2.5 times the original 4,500 square footage proposed by the Bolton and Mink study. I want to reiterate that the fitness centers are paying property taxes on the space, whereas the space for the fitness, YMCA, and community center is tax-free, and FAC, or its holding company, will not be required to pay taxes on that space. Let's move over to Project 1590. Furthermore, what Project 1590 and FAC were selling the community just prior to the vote was a multifaceted community center, not a YMCA gym and swim. This page that I'm holding here is the November 6th Project 1590 website archive. Across the top, it states, imagine a community center for all ages and citizens. It is a need for communities and a want for Fairmont. Moving down into the center of the text, if Fairmont collects this tax, everyone, including visitors that use our services or that shop in Fairmont, will pay this tax towards our regional wellness center, capitalized. Moving on, along with other community capital enhancement projects such as parks and new trails in the region, all lowercase letters with emphasis. The Fairmont Community Center could house a senior citizen center with a full kitchen, field house with walking track and 4 courts for pickleball, tennis, basketball, soccer, and anything in between. Within this center could be a therapy pool for rehab, for injuries that citizens could use and receive treatment. An ice arena, which in the winter could house ice sports and ice skating for enjoyment, along with a removable floor for indoor soccer, baseball, softball, and anything else played on turf. With this complex could be a common community area, housing updated technology, computers for our citizens, and an educational study area along with a large banquet hall and meeting rooms. It could also have a children's indoor play area so families with young children could play active play during our winter's months and rainy days. All of these buildings could be used daily throughout the year to bring conventions, camper shows, and other events to Fairmont, adding money to our local economy. Anybody notice anything that's missing? They never mentioned fitness again. I brought this up last week in the article from the Sentinel that the same thing happened last week. It's happened numerous times. We're giving lip service all along that we're concerned about our private businesses, but yet nobody wants to mention that the competition and rub between the adult fitness clubs. There's no mention of fitness. There's no mention that the fitness clubs will be rated by the nonprofit competition from the YMCA for their revenue. Additionally, this would happen for the nonprofits in town as well. They're going to have to compete with these two new non-for-profit agencies that have large fundraising wants and needs that Richard showed you. Next slide, please. Moving on. The proposed YMCA Community Center by the Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation gets to operate the YMCA tax-free. It's owned by the FACCF, made possible from the $14 million from you taxpayers. It's only obligated to operate the facility as a YMCA community center for the term of the bonding loan, approximately 7 to 9 years. They can repurpose or sell off the facility anytime after that period. The citizens have to foot the bill for the interest on the bonding loan. The citizens don't own anything. And the Ballard King study, again, it's a study that you, the taxpayers, paid for, and the city asked for. On page 66 in 2019, it was stated that the proposed community center at that time, with about a 45,000 square foot footprint, would lose somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 a year. That's page 66 on the Ballard King study. This is the information that you folks have paid for that the city folks are not paying attention to. So, next slide, please.
It is Monday, April 11th, 2022. It's 5:30 p.m. and we are in the City Hall Council chambers.
The whole purpose of the Fairmont Area Community Foundation is to fulfill two things that were in your original resolution passed by the City Council. The first was to raise the private funds needed to contribute to the cost of constructing a facility. Currently, we have $4.5 million of pledges to that effect. The second purpose of the Fairmont Area Community Center was to potentially be the operating entity, which the council said they didn't want to operate. And so this is an attempt to make a permanent foundation that could be funded over time that would actually take care of maintenance, operations, and functionality.
So, I forgot to introduce that we're moving into our slide section. So, here's my narrative on this. By fulfilling two things of the City of Fairmont past resolution. Number one, through their nonprofit, raises $6 million in private donations and potentially be the operating entity for the facility, as the city later revealed it did not want to operate the facility. So my question to you is, does this sound like a veiled request from the city without actually providing the work and details of a request for proposal? An RFP. And is this a request? And if this is a request, shouldn't this have gone out to the general public as an RFP for every taxpayer who may have wanted to submit a bid for the project? This would have ensured that the municipality and you, the taxpayers, were receiving the best benefit for their tax dollars. You must be asking, what is an RFP? An RFP is a business document that announces a project, along with a detailed description of that project, terms and conditions of the bidding requirements, and a solicitation for bids. All municipalities use RFPs for projects and are required to use this process for any project over a certain amount. And Fairmont's, I believe, is $175,000. Next slide, please.
It's not about the structure. What comes first is what does the community need, and they're going to be here talking about that programming and focusing on that first. It's not a build it first and they'll come. It really is going to be a dialogue of what does the community want for programming, and that programming can help then drive operational cost and income.
What we've been told, it's not about the structure. Really? I think we will conclusively prove that it is. What does the community need? Well, Fairmont has needed childcare for over 3 decades, and it did not make it through the cuts in the plan. In fact, childcare was cut early on in the plan. It's not a build it first and they'll come project. Well, it is. What programming does the community want and need? That programming will drive operational costs and income. Again, we will show where we proposed and showed the City Council I sent a 10-page email documenting a child care between Alexandria, Minnesota YMCA, very similar footprint, as well as the Forest City YMCA's child care footprint. With no response from the city, and we'll explain this in more detail in another slide. Next slide, please.
The Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation has entered into a consulting agreement with the YMCA, and it is the first time the YMCA actually will have a physical presence here in the city. That work is underway, and we hope to have a larger work session with all of you to go through what we're seeing, to have your input, particularly as you all decide what should or shouldn't be built in the community center, which is the city's determination. They are going to be opening an office here in town, and we will end up with a storefront, and I know we'll be open to talking with the city council as to what needs you all think should happen as well for programming.
So, this is the first time the YMCA said that they will have a physical presence with an office and a storefront in Fairmont. Today, more than 18 months later, the YMCA still has not come to town yet. So where are they? And if Fairmont is so important to the YMCA, why are they not here today, participating in our lives? It's been 18 months, 2 summers have come and gone with no participation from the YMCA. No Heritage Days float, no attendance at the fair. Why are they not here doing programming in the parks in the summer? Are we building this community center for the citizens' needs or the YMCA's needs? The city will decide what should or shouldn't be built in this community center. This is the city's determination. True story. I showed this clip to a former city leader, and that person laughed out loud about the notion that the city was in charge of what amenities are going into the community center design. If this actually is the city's determination that they talked about in the video, then explain why, when we inquired about cutting the fitness back to 5,000 square feet and adding childcare as a solution to allow all of us to continue to be successful in Fairmont, their response was, if you want more space for a childcare, we'll do it. We need more money from the city. Instead of shrinking the adult fitness space, reallocating some of that space for a child care and making it work on their end, so you, the taxpayer, and all of us inclusively can continue to be successful in Fairmont. What are the needs that the city thinks should be included? If this is truly the case, and the city is in charge, or was in charge of this project, then should not have the city issued an RFP specifically addressing all these issues? An RFP is designed to specifically define what is built. Oh, that's right. This is just more talk that the city is in charge, but they take no action. More lip service. Next video, please.
Here's what I really want you to understand is the YMCA is an organization based on programs. We don't need a facility. We can do our programs in the parks. We could do them on Main Street. We could do them anywhere. Our programs are designed to work with people where they're at. It's nice to have a facility for sure, but we don't need it. It's hard to do childcare, of course, with a facility. It could run a little wild if there's no fences. But we do, certainly childcare is a big thing. The YMCA is the largest organizational provider of childcare in the United States. In Forest City, every day, it's a community of 4,200 people. We care for anywhere between 150 and 170 kids. So it's huge. Childcare is a huge and important part of our operation in Forest City. And it's definitely a growth area in Albert Lea. To a lot of people, think of the YMCA as a gym and a pool, but it's just so much more than that.
So what we want you to understand is the YMCA is based on programs. We don't need a facility. We can do program anywhere. Our programs are designed to work with people where they are at. Another interesting story. A short time after the April 11th, 2022 City Council meeting, the YMCA representatives came back to Fairmont and toured the SMEC building with city administration to consider opening their storefront in the SMEC building. By all accounts, we have heard it was a successful tour with lots of positive feedback from the YMCA representatives that the space would work. The YMCA people left the SMEC building to attend a meeting with the FAC board. Sometime after that meeting, or the next day, or the next week, the YMCA people called back to the city administration and said they were not going to open an office in the SMEC building and would not come to Fairmont until the new building was for sure going to be built. So ask yourself, what happened at the FAC board meeting? And who is controlling the project? I guess it really is a build it and they will come project after all. Next slide, please. So, childcare is a big thing. The YMCA is the largest childcare provider in the United States. I explained to you that I sent a 10-page email to the entire council detailing the Forest City YMCA, which at the time, that director was going to be hired as a partial director here to oversee the three Ys, Forest City, Fairmont, as well as Albert Lee. The Forest City YMCA, when it opened daycare in the mid-2015-2016 timeframe, started out $400,000 a year in gross revenue. Grew that to over $550,000 a year in gross revenue in a very small community. Now, let's move to the Alexandria numbers. And these are much closer to what we felt Fairmont could achieve because of the need for childcare in Fairmont. Alexandria originally opened its facility, which is a little bit bigger. I believe that one was 56 or 58,000 square feet compared to our 46, 48,000 square feet. But the Alexandria childcare started out first year, $750,000 in gross revenue, and grew that revenue in the next 5 to 7 years to $1.6 million in childcare. Now, I've had people come back, including city councilors, come and say, well, what about competing with the other child care facilities in town? Great question. Thank all of those people that provide in-home daycare. They do an amazing job. Thank Lakeview for what they do. But child care in Fairmont has never been solved by the private sector. Okay? The fitness component has been solved by the private sector. And that's our point all along. FACT claims that the proposed construction for the YMCA is more than a gym and a pool. Looks like a fitness center, gym, and pool to me. Next slide, please.
As it's been stated over and over, we're not here to compete. We're here to become a part of the community and enhance what the community has and make it bigger and better. You know, they talked a little bit about a couple of the other Ys that have gone under. If you look at some of their models, they incurred huge debt because they owned the building. This is a case where we're coming in and we're operating the building. We're operating it through the Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation, who is making the operational agreements with you guys. We will work with them and ensure that there's no discrepancies there. But again, not having a building debt, not having that overhead cost really allows to get going and hit the ground running and moving forward. And again, you got to remember, we're a collaborative. We'll work with everybody.
We are not here to compete. We are here to become part of the community. We're a collaborative. We will work with everybody. We will work for the community as long as the donation dollars flow. That's what provides the work. Embedded in the community means they have to get donations, which are a big part of their program. And they're entitled to those donations because they do some of the work in between work and fill in the gaps. But they're not supposed to primarily compete with your tax-paying fitness clubs. They will partner with any organization that is a not-for-profit that is willing to give up a portion or all of the revenue that sector or service. But it's not a fit for us in the private sector because we need revenue to continue to pay the taxes that help support our city, and they do need some revenue as well. We have offered, folks, a minimum of 3 to 4 solutions to the city council. They've all fallen on deaf ears. Before we're done tonight, we're going to offer another solution or two to let you all hear. Continuing on, we don't want to compete. However, we will get our model and we will use that model as a tool to leverage and get what we want. or our leverage is we won't come. And that's what the mistake this council has fallen for. They won't come. Folks, right there, they're after a $25 million free building. We will show that in the future with some other comparisons of YMCA's, but that's the carrot. The city council needs to have some backbone and limit the adult fitness. We've had the offer on the table, and we'd quite honestly be done arguing about it, but everybody wants to continue to go down this road. I had this conversation just last night with the new city administrator yesterday regarding the city FAC and the YMCA rating the local fitness club's revenue to support their non-for-profit mission. It just so happens our new interim city administrator was up in St. Joe, Minnesota, and I had done a lot of research on that why when it came in up there. Same controversy. I think it took almost 10 years again. Don't quote me on that because it's been a while since I did the research. I added the exact same situation is happening at our local. So, in a nutshell, when I walked him through everything and I said we had offered solutions, he looked at me and laughed and said, oh, they'll never do that. They want their program and their model, or they won't come. Simple as that. Great conversation with the gentleman, and I certainly hope that he is successful for our community because we need that kind of leadership. I added the exact same situation is happening for our other local not-for-profits when it comes to donations, because the YMCA and FAC reported what their collective fundraising goals are or will be $1 million per year over the next 5 years. And you remember Diana mentioning the footnotes? They're in the footnotes. Yep.
Independence from city operational control, an independent foundation that can hold and receive donations, and build an endowment to support and maintain the facility.
I have a question on the building. So according to the community center website, it says that the city of Fairmont is going to take care of the building and property upkeep. But my understanding is there's no cost to the city. I just want to clarify that.
I'd like to have clarification too. We haven't been able to even have a meeting to discuss that. Our view is that the operations, our goal would be operations are all covered by the YMCA. What's unclear is, for example, snow removal on the parking lot. We don't know where the city stands. We'll suspect where some of you stand. Those are the things we'd walk through. The other is on a traditional YMCA or community center structure. I think it would be true with ICE. Often rooftop is maintained by city with a sinking fund. But again, I want to point out we're trying to create a $2 million endowment, which, had we done that, we wouldn't be talking about fixing the ice. But anyway, we have a $2 million endowment. We're trying to deal with it.
So, what we've been told, my narration on this, build an endowment, independence from city operation and control, the foundation to hold and receive donations with operations covered by the YMCA. Traditional YMCA rooftop is covered by the city with a sinking fund. Come on, this is just another add-on fee to you, the taxpayers. So which is it? Is FAC covering it, or is it the city? More flip-flopping and lip service in the same sentence. We're working on a $2 million endowment. Remember that. We're trying to deal with it with our endowment built by and for FAC. Next video, please.
Right now, we've talked $500,000 founders campaign to help those first couple of years. As we move on, we will build a $2.1 million endowment fund.
We talked about a $500,000 founders campaign, eventually turning that campaign into a $2.1 million endowment. This is for the YMCA for themselves, folks. The $500,000 founders campaign is to get them started in the first couple of years. The additional $2.1 million endowment is for the eternity of their time here. This is the YMCA's fundraising along with $180,000 a year to start first year, ramping up to $250,000 a year for the Strong Kids and Strong Families campaign. Add that to the $400,000 per year for their footnote right here, $400,000 a year for the next 5 years, along with the FAC group's $2 million endowment over the next 5 years, you come to $1 million coming out of the philanthropy pocket from our local community. This will majorly impact our other nonprofits in town. And quite honestly, I'm going to make an argument for all those nonprofits right now. They're going to get hit twice. Not only do they not get any of the sales tax dollars to help their mission or what they're providing to the community, they get hit a second time because they have two new not-for-profit entities in town that are behemoths that will have fundraising mechanisms to compete for those nonprofit dollars, to raid their donations, much like the YMCA will raid the 2 fitness clubs that are left here in Fairmont. I'd also like to remind everybody, up to 18 months ago, we had 4 clubs in town, okay? One did decide to not renew their lease and leave. We had a consolidation of one other one. That leaves 2 clubs in town. Next slide, please.
I have a question.
Counselor?
Going through the PowerPoint that the Community Center Foundation put forth on page 9 or slide 9, it states the foundation has a goal of establishing a $500,000 endowment to support the organization over the long term. And it was my understanding that the foundation was going to do a $2 million and YMCA was going to do a $2 million. So just curious why that changed.
I'll defer because I'm not sure where the 2 million came from.
It was talked about at the last work session, and I think it was talked about at a previous city council meeting as well, but the comment was made that each were going to do a $2 million endowment. And I did not go back and look. I can go back and look and send that to you in an email.
I think we should. We've been at $500,000. We do think that, and that's just the Fairmont Area Foundation, Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation, raising those funds. We expect to be above $500,000 for that endowment.
Okay. I will send you that information.
Very good. Thank you.
We call that slide the case of the missing $4 million. In the previous 2 slides, we showed that the FACT group was saying they were working on a $2 million endowment for maintenance and operations of the facility. And the YMCA doing a $500,000 founders campaign along with a $2 million endowment. Okay, now mind you, this happened no more than 90 days later than the work session previously. So what has changed? Where did the $4 million go? I understand today we have a different agreement in place, but I'm showing you the track record of everything that has gone on over the past 7, 8 years, however long this project has been with us hanging on. Why is the YMCA not raising their own founders campaign funds? You heard the YMCA or the FACT representative here say that they're raising the founders campaign funds. Well, folks, most everybody in here has kids. We all know the family that buys a kid the new car, the new hot rod, and he goes out and wraps it around the tree because he never really had to work for it, right? Well, if you're going to give them a $25 million, turn over a $25 million building that is primarily paid for with tax dollars, which we will prove later, okay, and now you're going to raise their $500,000 initial investment to come into town? No wonder they're not here. It's a free ride. Just asking the questions. Next slide, please.
And I'll let the Y speak to the exercise space, but I believe it's 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think it was 5,000 square feet for the wellness center.
And that is standard space needed for an operation of a Y. All Ys have exercise space. So no, we don't believe it can be replaced. We think it would cause an issue with pro forma.
So, I'm holding the 292 design group. This is the last available data sheet that's been available. It's from September 2022. I can tell you, I have turned over every rock to get the latest update for you. This shows adult fitness at 11,180 square feet. Again, it grew over 2,200 from the previous plan, the diagram that Richard showed, with the colorful diagram that Richard showed, okay? But I want to make one other point to this diagram here, okay? I went through and looked. Absolutely every component on here, again, has shrunk. The pool shrunk by approximately 2,000 square feet. The gymnasium shrunk by approximately 2,000 square feet. The pool area shrunk by about 1,500 square feet. But note, this is a pool for our families, correct? There is a specific line item on here. There's the current square footage on the far right, and there's a column of what the YMCA wants. Again, I ask the question, are we building this for you, the citizens? What services you need, childcare, whatever those are? I scrolled down to find in the community area and the pool area, the 20 by 20 room dedicated for kids' parties connected to the pool got eliminated. Come on, folks. They want to build what they want to build. Are they really here trying to provide the services that they tell you that they're trying to provide? Next slide, please. Or hold on. Let me make sure I'm at where I'm at. All right, next slide. Yes. So, here we are. We're at the Bolton and Mink study. The YMCA took out the kids' party room, the 20 by 20 room. The Bolton and Mink study started at 4,500 square feet. 2019, the fitness grew to 11,100, and in 2022, it's still at the 11,100. Every single other component has been eliminated or significantly shrunk. Next slide, please.
I think like every other organization, and maybe the heart of the question is that there are some that are successful and there are some that are not. YMCAs that are out there behaving as a gym and swim are not being successful because that membership has gone down, and in many cases it isn't coming back. We know that folks are out there doing things at home with things like Peloton and Mirror, and so it's really affected the membership model, and we have to find other ways to generate revenue. So yeah, there's going to be some. It's been a hard time for YMCAs and for many businesses and nonprofits.
So, I'm going to give you a little comparison, folks. This is a YMCA that just recently closed in Indianola, Iowa. Indianola is a community, 6,000 people, larger than Fairmont. It has a median income of $67,000 a year, so it's $12,000 higher median income, and the average age, median age there is 36 years old, which is 12 years younger than we are here. This just happened a couple months ago, and here's the middle quote here. However, since its opening, and this facility opened in 2013, so 10 years ago, the Indianola Y has required an annual financial subsidy from the YMCA in order to operate. While this was anticipated and planned for the early years, the expectation was that over time the branch would generate enough revenue through membership programs and charitable contributions to cover its expenses. And unfortunately, despite the efforts of the Y, its board, staff, and volunteers, this has not been the case. Let me give you a few other statistics, folks. The elements for success for the community were there. This community is 15 minutes from Des Moines. They have joint memberships with all the Des Moines facilities, so if mom works in town in the financial district, she can go hit that Y over her lunch hour if she chooses. If the kids have a program that isn't offered at their Y, they could go to another Y, okay? Furthermore, the demographics for the community are much greater, and the elements for success are much greater than what we have here in Fairmont. And I'm not saying anything negative about what we offer in Fairmont. Fairmont's a great community and a great town to live in. The Y director added in another article from back in 2019, and this goes to the YMCA's fundraising program. Barkus has also asked, this is the Y director, the Indianola YMCA to increase its annual fundraising to $100,000. In the past 3 years, the Indianola YMCA has raised approximately $60,000 to $70,000 per year. Folks, here the YMCA is telling us that their Strong Kids and Strong Families contribution and grants, they think that they're going to raise $180,000 to $250,000 a year. How's this going to work when it doesn't work in a community that has all the elements for success? And not to mention, Fairmont has 2 behemoths of privately owned clubs here for them to compete with. So, moving on, next slide. So, we've been told, leave it to the experts. Well, who are our experts? And for lack of a better group of people to talk about, I'm going to talk about looking locally here. Who are our experts? If we have a load of materials shipped or need to be shipped somewhere, we call Bart's Trucking. If we need an electrician, we can call Michelle Miller's family, Kaler Electric. If we have insurance needs, we can call Wayne Hassick. If we have accounting needs, we can call Councilman Randy Lubinaugh. And if we have dog kenneling and grooming needs, we can call Councilor Kowicki. This is the fabric of the Fairmont community. These are some of our local experts, I would think. Oh, and don't let me forget Jay Maynard. If you need computer work, he's your guy. So, let's talk about our fitness centers here in town. We have 2 of them. I'm going to start with Cutting Edge Fitness in CJ. CJ has a 4-year exercise science degree, along with 2 advanced certifications that would allow him to be a strength and conditioning coach at any Division I level program or a professional sports team. Why is he not considered a local expert? Not to mention, Alex at LibFit, he has an exercise science degree, and he has 2 advanced certifications. Folks, this is extra education that they go get. Why is he not considered a local expert? You're building a fitness center, okay? FAC is telling us we're building a fitness center with a small gym and a pool. Your experienced operators are already here and in town. So why weren't they given the opportunity as tax-paying citizens to put in a bid or respond to an RFP? Nobody wanted them. They wanted what they wanted for other reasons. We've been told, let the experts do the work. Next slide, please. Part 3, RFPs. All right, we're going to move forward here to the April, let's see here. Okay, we are going to move forward to the RFPs. The city never issued an RFP for the community center project or the foundation project, only for the construction contracts. We believe the first error by the city was there has been an RFP put out for the original $6 million criteria that the city had required to use the sales tax dollars for a community center passed in 2016. Remember, the original intent of all these resolutions was that a community center would be built for $20 million or less and paid for. The only debt payment on the building would be held by the city through bonds, but that payment would be a wash because it's paid for by the local option sales tax. So the facility would be technically considered paid for with no debt. More to come on this issue later, but now I want you to remember back to Diana's wonderful presentation that showed all the different loans moving money around in later loan to moving money to make their project work, and I don't understand it all, but she did a fabulous job explaining it. So, next slide, please. We also believe the city doubled down on the mistake of not putting out an RFP for the project at the April 11th, 2022 council meeting that the council made a memorandum with the FACT group for the $6 million and chose not to put this out for an RFP. In the FACT's own words, they were fulfilling the city's request to raise the $6 million and be the operational partner. Anyone interested in this should have been able to give a competitive bid. We believe, in our humble opinion, the city further complicated their position by choosing to move the community center project outside city control and oversight on June 12th, 2023. We believe this is the third violation of not providing an RFP for granting the entire balance of the sales tax money to the FACT Foundation. This not only gave the sales tax revenue away, but moved the project outside the city to a private, not-for-profit entity to develop the project. This was never the intent or desire of the original sales tax money to be moved outside the city, nor was the intent of the sales tax money to solely build a YMCA. Do any of you remember voting on a YMCA? Again, any taxpayer that would have been interested in this project should have been able to put a bid in for this money that was going to be given away to build a community center. And every taxpayer in this room should have wanted to put in a bid for this project. By the city choosing to move this project outside the city and grant the sales tax dollars to the foundation, the city was no longer, the project was no longer a city-designed, city-driven, city-owned, or city-controlled project. Nor does the city have any input what is built in the YMCA services or amenities today. This document right here is from the May 10th agenda. You can go online and download it and look for yourself. The agreement is a financing, ownership, and maintenance agreement. There's no design criteria in here. But yet we're told the city has input in the design. Again, is the city building this community center for the YMCA, or is it building it for you, the citizens? Not one mention about design controls in this whole document. So, moving on. Next slide, please. So, we're at the Attorney General's position. Based on the AG opinion, the Attorney General, every taxpayer in this room should have had the right to form their own nonprofit group and bid on that RFP. There never was, to this day, and never has been, a defined set of plans from the city on what the city was going to build. Those plans all came from outside the city. The entire project has been led and driven from day one outside city control and purview, starting with Project 1590 and continued on to the FACT Foundation. This is the reason why there was never an RFP put out by the city. The city was not driving what was going to be built in this project. The Project 1590 and FACT Group were, and the YMCA are driving the facilities design now. Example, the long sheet that I showed you. Next slide, please. The whole purpose of government putting out RFPs is to make sure all entities are bidding on the exact same specifications of whatever is being constructed and drive the costs through the competitive bidding process to get you, the taxpayer, the best possible price. Next slide, please. So, community center financing and the new market tax credits. So, what I'm going to show you, and my detail is not near what Diana's was, but the initial $6 million investment, when parred out, Richard, let's go to the next slide. The original intent was to have no loan other than the original bond payment loan. Next slide. Okay, this is the slide that I wanted to get to. And this is breaking down the $6 million and what's going into this facility. And we're going to show you this facility is all tax dollars. Up at the top and the center, we're going to talk about that a lot. The federal tax code, state tax code, and 501c3s all operate in that top box. We have a solution to our problem, and our solution is, why not have them build it on their own? They have a multi-billion-dollar company as one donor. They have a future forecasted another billion-dollar family foundation as another donor. They have $6 million in cash. They have the nonprofit status. In the federal tax code and state tax code, they get up to a 40% tax deduction for making that investment. So why wouldn't they do it on their own? What's the holdup? Well, they want the sales tax dollars, the municipality dollars. So let's break that down. If you look to the left here, we have the $6 million donation net of $3.6 million after their tax deductions, okay? Now, move over to the top right box. You have that same $6 million down payment. The net tax deduction is $2.4 million on that $6 million. Okay. So now, let's move down to the middle two boxes that have the red wording in them. The one to the left is the municipal sales tax money. That is your money, folks. That's going to flow up into the project up above so they can do their project. So that is represented by the second box on the right, the $13 to $14.85 million local option sales tax revenues. Okay? Now, the second red box, the one to the right, the federal development programs subsidized by federal tax credits. That's represented down here in the third box on the right, $10 million in federal tax credits. Federal tax credits are dollar for dollar tax credits, so it is real money. So, going back to the left side here, for a $3.6 million down payment, let's scroll over here to the bottom right box and add up all these different tax deductions. You have the first $2.4 million tax deduction for donating the original money. You have the $13 to $14.85 million sales tax money, again, tax money. Box 3 on the right, $10 million in federal tax credits for a total of $25.4 to $27.25 million of straight tax dollars. Folks, are you telling me we can't find anything better to spend $25 to $27 million of tax money on than building a gym and a swim? Because that's what we're building. And what real problem for Fairmont are we solving with this, other than competing with the private sector businesses and potentially close, for sure, one of those if this is built? There's just no way around it. Question. We're going to get into questions shortly. I want to finish things up. Why are we here today? It was to explain to you our vision and role, and introduce you to our Fairmont Taxpayer Coalition Group, and let C4 give a presentation. And we hope this has enlightened you about the entire project, okay? But so why are we here? To move things to kind of the next level, there's been lots of questions in the community of who wrote the original letter that came to the city council from an attorney in Minneapolis, Marshall Tannick. And this letter's been referred to quite a bit at the council meetings. The letter, the response to the letter from the city cost the city $30,000. And as a taxpayer, yes, we're concerned about how much money we're spending on tax dollars. But truth be told, this came from our Fairmont Taxpayer Coalition Group, and just like it says on the letter, we are a concerned group of residents and citizens, so this was not some fictitious thing that just happened and showed up. Marshall Tannick is a real attorney, okay? In fact, he's a top 1% attorney in the country. He's a junkyard dog. This guy's a great attorney. We have looked into this whole situation in great depth. We're not proud to be up here today telling you that we're looking at considering actions. We've done everything in our power. Richard and I together, I guarantee you probably have somewhere close to 500 hours into this thing over the years, not to mention dollars. So I understand there was some real outrage at the city council, but I'm going to tell you today, us as a group, and I don't just mean C4, I don't just mean the taxpayer group, we have $35,000 to $40,000 into where we're at today. Okay? So we're spending money plus continuing to pay tax dollars. We get it. We understand. We're not proud to be up here today saying we're looking at potentially considering taking action because of some of the concerns that we have stated here today. In a nutshell, we feel we have done absolutely everything to bring solutions. No different than the solution that we showed you in the top box there, that they can build it themselves. They get a 40% discount or tax deduction the way it is. Are you really telling me that's not enough? We need to take $27 million of tax money to fund this? So, at the end of the day, I want to wrap things up because we want to get to some questions, okay? I'm certainly open to taking any questions outside of here. You'll have access to my phone number. But ultimately, I want to thank Richard. I want to thank Diana for 2 wonderful promotions. I want to thank the entire C4 group for all of your support and everybody else that has been here to support us. We are not here. We love Fairmont. We want Fairmont to grow. But I'm telling you folks, those 2 fitness club owners, they have families. They have young kids. And you may be asking, why am I doing this? I do own one of the buildings in town. But this exact situation happened to me when my kids were the same age that CJ's kids are. And he's the owner of the club in my building. I never had a group of people doing the kind of work behind the scenes that Richard has done, I have done. Look at those detailed graphs in the corner, or in the lobby. Folks, this is real stuff. These people are exceptional people. And they're happy and proud to be part of your community.
Mark, you need to briefly talk about the declarations.
So, thank you, Richard. We have declarations here tonight. The whole purpose of our declaration is to show that people were confused by some of the language. If you voted, doesn't matter if you voted in 2016, we have 3 different sets of declarations out front. If you want to join our group, if you want to talk to us about what we're doing, we have declarations to sign tonight. There's absolutely no pressure, okay? We don't need to change anybody's mind in Fairmont. There's not the support through the general public for this project. So there's declarations here. There's declarations that if you did vote in 2016, you sign a white one. If you did not vote in 2016, you sign a yellow one. And if you do not live in Fairmont, you sign a yellow one. And if you are a Hispanic, we have another copy here translated in Spanish for you. So.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. We've got a few questions. We're going to run fast because we don't have a lot of time. What we did want to tell you is that if you asked a question, we don't get to it tonight, we're going to put them on our website with the answers as best we can put them together for you. Keep in touch with us. We would really appreciate, and we really appreciate your time tonight. One of the questions is, does C4 proposed community center cover child care needs? It is a start. The child care needs in this town are vast. We have families who are actually planning fewer children because of the daycare issues. So the C4 plan does need to address that. We're working on it, but it does begin. Is it possible that at some point the city will be asking the county to help with funding? That is not in the plan. This is actually the first time I've heard this question, so I loved it, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to grab it. But let's remember that we're an interesting community. We have kind of an interesting situation. Were there enough millions for you tonight? I mean, I was millioned out personally. It's a lot. I will not say that any of us can predict the future. It is possible for us, if it is possible for us to go to the federal government and say that we have a low-income distressed property that we need a new market tax credit for, it is possible that we could talk to the county. I don't know that we will, but a lot of things are possible. There's a question about parking, school parking lot. Where else is the community center parking going to be? What we have heard is that there's not enough parking. The design, I hope in October, that's coming out in a couple of weeks, it's a brand new design, we haven't seen it yet, so we're looking forward to it, is going to address more parking. We'll see what it comes up with. This person also said that they were concerned about walking across the street from the school if someone parked at the school. I think that's a valid concern. Wheelchairs, walkers in the winter, those are valid concerns, and we're watching that closely. Will many insurance companies also pay our memberships to the proposed community center seniors? Oh, and so what this addresses is senior discounts. I don't think that that's been looked at the depth that we'd like to look at it. And the Y hasn't addressed that. I know the Y does give senior discounts, but whether your Medicare Advantage will work for that, we don't know the answer to that, but we're going to take that one back home and take a look at it. This one says, I attended 4 to 5 planning meetings at the SMEC building. The groups invited were the city administrator, the Mayo, Fairmont Hockey, Fairmont Schools, Community Center Group. As the designs were being discussed, the architect asked at 2 different meetings if a very large overhead door is desired. He said other communities use their community centers to hold ag conventions. When this was asked the second time, I chimed in and said, looks like there is no ag representation here. So I guess the answer is no. I think the answer is no. I think that's right. But remember, this is a moving target. The community center has changed and changed and changed and changed, and we're waiting for the next change. So that may be included next. If the Y is a 3-town operation, which I believe is Forest City, Albert Lee, Fairmont, will our $2 million endowment fund be available to the other communities if they need help? That's an interesting question. We're going to need to ask the Y that. I don't think we know that yet. What is the CCAB relationship to the holding company of the community center building? Okay, that's an interesting and more complex question. Remember, there's a CCAB.
Well, it was formed by the city.
Yes.
The CCAB was formed by the city to help move the project forward to an analysis on the engineering design and provide feedback to the city council so they could make wise decisions on whether to go forward with this. And so they worked with a bunch of different people, the architects, Tegra, and several others.
Right, and so the CCAB, there's the CCAB, there's the Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation, then there is the Fairmont Area Community Center Holding Company, which is not, as we understand it, a not-for-profit. That will own the building and the land as we know it today. You have one more? Mark, you got one? That's all we have from this side,
okay.
And you've got one, and then thank you. You guys have been awesome.
So I have one question here. How can this be brought back to the citizens for a vote on the use of the monies? Okay, sorry about that. How can this be brought back to the citizens for a vote on the use of the monies? Interesting question, folks. So that's one of the reasons why we chose the individual that we chose to help represent us, to represent taxpayers, represent the fitness club owners. And in some respects, we're going to be representing some of the nonprofits in town if they want to be involved. because they have action here available too, because this could turn into some sort of a class action situation. But ultimately, I don't know that we can take this back to a vote without going to court. There's many possibilities we've discussed with our attorney, and we're looking at all the different options available. And I'm not saying tonight that we're for sure moving ahead with some sort of a suit, but we are looking at all available avenues to find a solution for this.
Mark, who's the we?
Well, the Fairmont Taxpayer Coalition.
Got it.
Sorry.
Not C4. We
Yes,
do want you guys to know that.
C4 has nothing to do with the suit. This is the Fairmont Taxpayer Coalition.
Got to make that clear.
Yes, thank you. And sometimes I forget that. Their group has been wonderfully supportive. I went to them some time ago. We talked about it. I've given presentations to their group.
Yep.
Thank you all from the C4 group. Some of you have really been beat up, and we understand. And we certainly appreciate everything you've done for us, the club owners, some of the nonprofits that are concerned. We're going to continue to have some conversation. We're hoping to continue some conversation with our city officials to see if we can find an amicable solution to what we're doing. But us as the community taxpayers and business owners, we need to be able to see an avenue to stay in here. The YMCA says they want it their way, they want what they want because they need the revenue. We need to live here too. We're the ones here that have been here 20 years providing services to a lot of people that come to our clubs. And here's one other thing. The only people that pay to use our facilities are the people that want to be members. The rest of you, it costs you nothing. This project, the community center project, will cost you money in many different ways.
I do want to thank you all for coming tonight, and I did want to encourage you that if you do have any other questions, please go to the website. You can drop us an email and send it to us, and we'll be glad to take your question, and we will answer. We will post all the answers on our website for you. So thank you very much for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.